They demanded I pay $250,000 in fines for so-called violations of their HOA regulations over the past 5 years plus legal fees and penalties they seemed to make up on the spot, all on the very land my grandfather left me. The kicker? Turns out they were the ones who had built homes on my property. 6 months ago, I wasn't a rancher. I was Jordan Ellis, a 35-year-old software engineer living in Portland, Oregon. I had a stable job in tech, a solid salary, and a comfortable apartment. But when the market took a nosedive and my company collapsed overnight, I found myself jobless in one of the most expensive cities in the country. Weeks into my unemployment, the call came that changed everything. My grandfather, Samuel Ellis, passed away at 89, leaving behind his 100-acre ranch in Montana and me as the sole heir. The ranch was a place I knew well from childhood summers, but I hadn't set foot there in nearly a decade. My initial plan was simple: drive out, settle the estate, and sell the property. I didn't know the first thing about running a ranch, and I figured the proceeds could buy me some time to regroup. But when I arrived and saw the land, saw how much of it had been swallowed by new development, I knew this wasn't going to be that simple. The house stood just as I remembered. Small but sturdy, perched on a hill that overlooked the sprawling fields and the creek where my grandfather once taught me to fish. What was new was the neat row of luxury homes stretching into what I thought was my grandfather's land. I barely had time to process the shock before I found the letter pinned to the front door. It was from the Silver Creek Homeowners Association, demanding immediate payment of $250,000 for violations dating back years, including unauthorized agricultural activity and improper fencing. I didn't even know the ranch fell under any HOA. I was still trying to wrap my head around it when I met Carolyn Bates, my grandfather's longtime neighbor. A weathered woman in her 70s with sharp eyes and a handshake like steel, Carolyn had lived next door for 30 years. She didn't mince words. "Your granddad stood up to those vultures," she said. "Refused to sell when they started building. They've been gunning for this land ever since." Carolyn pointed me toward a folder my grandfather kept in his study labeled Boundaries. Inside was a collection of maps, surveys, and handwritten notes, all raising serious questions about the property lines. The older documents clearly showed the ranch extending well into the area where the new houses now stood. Determined to understand the situation, I visited the county records office. The clerk, a friendly woman named Janine, confirmed my grandfather's suspicions. The original 1950s survey placed the ranch boundary a good 300 yards beyond where the Silver Creek development claimed it ended. The new survey submitted by the developer in 2019 had mysteriously shifted the line. I asked if an independent surveyor could verify this. Janine nodded and gave me the name of Bill Sutherland, a respected local surveyor known for his integrity. Bill arrived the next morning. A man of few words and fewer smiles, he spent the day combing through the property, checking the old fence posts and comparing them to GPS data and the original maps. By sunset, he had his answer. "They built at least 10 acres worth of homes on your land," he said flatly, "including half their community clubhouse." With Bill's notarized report in hand, I confronted the Silver Creek HOA office. Victoria Monroe, the HOA president, met me with the kind of plastic smile that doesn't reach the eyes. She was polished, precise, and radiated entitlement. When I presented the survey, her expression didn't change. "Mr. Ellis, our development was approved by the county. Your grandfather was notified. If he chose to ignore that, well, that's unfortunate." I told her I wasn't going away. She told me I was out of my depth. But I wasn't alone. Bill recommended a property lawyer, Peter Grayson, based out of Helena. Peter took one look at the survey and said, "Jordan, this isn't just a mistake. This is fraud." With Peter's help, I filed a formal complaint contesting the HOA's claim and the $250,000 in fines. In response, they escalated their threats, raising the fines to $300,000, tacking on new administrative penalties and accusing me of defamation when I started talking to neighbors. But the more I dug, the more I uncovered. Workers from the original construction crew came forward quietly, sharing stories about survey flags being moved overnight and whistleblowers being fired. A former employee of the development company admitted that the firm had paid off a county inspector to approve the altered survey. Meanwhile, I met Rachel Dawson, an attorney who had recently moved into the Silver Creek neighborhood. She'd noticed oddities in the HOA's financial reports, fees rising with no explanation, special projects that never materialized. When she heard my story, she offered to help. Together, Rachel and I launched a quiet campaign to expose the truth. We shared evidence with homeowners, many of whom were furious to learn they might not legally own the land under their houses. We held a community meeting where I laid out the facts, the surveys, the boundary shifts, the manipulated documents. Victoria Monroe tried to spin it as baseless accusations by a bitter outsider. But the damage was done. The residents demanded answers. When the county launched an investigation, the development company's house of cards started to crumble. Emails surfaced showing that Monroe and several board members knew about the survey manipulation. They had knowingly built on land that wasn't theirs. The HOA dropped the fines. The board forced Monroe to resign. And in the settlement that followed, the HOA not only returned my grandfather's land but agreed to pay damages for the unauthorized use of the property. Instead of selling the ranch, I used the settlement money to restore it. With Rachel's help, I turned the place into a working ranch and community education center, teaching local kids about agriculture and conservation. What started as an inheritance I almost walked away from became my purpose. My grandfather always told me that the land holds memories. Thanks to the fight we won, those memories and that land are still ours. The months that followed brought a mix of challenges and triumphs. Rebuilding the ranch required more than just repairs. It demanded vision and dedication. With the funds from the settlement and the support of new friends in the community, I invested in restoring the barn, upgrading the fencing, and modernizing the irrigation system. Rachel helped me connect with local agricultural programs, and before long, we were hosting field trips for schools across the county. The ranch became a hub for teaching children where their food comes from, the importance of sustainable farming, and the value of standing up for what's right. Each group that visited left with a little more knowledge and a lot more respect for the land. Rachel and I continued our work together, officially forming a nonprofit dedicated to providing legal support and education to other landowners facing similar battles. We named it Ellis Foundation for Land Justice in honor of my grandfather's legacy. Slowly but surely, Silver Creek's reputation began to heal. The new HOA board, free from Monroe's influence, partnered with me to ensure transparent communication and mutual respect between the ranch and the development. Some of the same homeowners who once doubted me became active supporters of the ranch's mission. The first anniversary of my grandfather's passing was marked by a community event at the Ranch Barbecue, an open house where neighbors and visitors came together to celebrate not just the land, but the unity that had grown from conflict. Carolyn, Janine, Bill, Peter, and so many others who had stood by me were there. Rachel gave a speech, reminding everyone of the power of truth and perseverance. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting golden light across the fields, I stood on the same hill where my grandfather once did, feeling the weight of the journey behind me and the hope of the future ahead. The ranch was more than land. It was a testament to resilience, justice, and the unbreakable bond between people and the earth they call home.